All right, let's just dive right in. Today, we're doing an explainer on a man who completely changed how we look at human relationships. We're talking about A.R. Radcliffe-Brown. You know, alongside figures like Malinowski, he practically invented structural functionalism in British social anthropology. So what we're going to do today is unpack his incredibly precise and honestly highly workable concept of social structure, which, spoiler alert, still massively shapes the field today. It all starts with this massive, kind of mind-bending question. It's the ultimate problem of continuity, right? Think about it. Individuals are born, we live our lives, and eventually we die. But despite this endless, constant turnover of people, societies somehow manage to just keep persisting across generations. Like, how on earth does the overarching structure stay totally intact when the parts making it up are literally constantly being replaced?
Well, to solve this mystery, here is what we're going to cover. First, society as an organism. Then, the triad of structure, function, and continuity. After that, uncovering structural principles, managing in-law tension, which we can all relate to, and finally, strengths and blind spots.
Okay, Section 1. Society as an organism. So Radcliffe-Brown's ultimate ambition here was to build a true natural science of society. He wanted something that was just as empirical, just as observable as biology itself. He was hugely influenced by Emile Durkheim, and honestly, he essentially acted like the biologist of society. He leaned heavily into this idea called the organic analogy. He was directly comparing society to a living, breathing body. So you know how biology studies how organs keep a creature alive? Well, he argued that social anthropology studies how social customs keep the societal body breathing and functioning. It's like one giant living puzzle.
Moving on to Section 2, Structure, Function, and Continuity. This really brings us to the absolute core of his theory, mapping out the exact sequence of how a society actually survives.
He breaks this down into this absolutely brilliant three-step blueprint. It connects our everyday human interactions to the long-term survival of a whole culture. The steps are social structure, which leads to function, which ultimately results in structural continuity. Let's look at step 1, social structure. Now, Radcliffe-Brown was very particular about this definition. For him, social structure is the concrete, actually existing network of relations between people and groups at any given time. We're talking kinship, economics, politics, rituals, the whole shebang. He was adamant that this is not just some abstract model sitting in a researcher's head. No, it's the observable, real-world interactions happening right in front of your eyes. So, the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the difference between social structure and structural form. Basically, social structure is the people interacting right now. It's you, your boss, your family members. But structural form, that's the general persisting pattern. Think of the concept of a corporate hierarchy or a family unit. That form continues even as the specific individuals in those roles are born, eventually die, and get replaced. And this distinction right here, this is exactly how society maintains its continuity over time, despite the constant change in personnel.
All right, step 2 is function. If the structure is the body we just talked about, then the function acts as the heartbeat of this social organism.
Now, in his specific brand of structural functionalism, the word function has a very strict definition. Basically, a custom, a kinship rule, or some kind of ritual is only considered functional if it makes a direct contribution toward keeping the whole social structure working. It literally has to help maintain the coherence of the entire system.
And naturally, that leads us right into step 3, structural continuity. This is the ultimate goal of the social organism, right? It's a state where the whole system successfully persists across time, largely unbothered by the passing of individual members. To put it in his own words, Radcliffe-Brown noted, the structural form persists across generations even though the individuals filling its roles keep changing. And boom, this completely answers our opening mystery. The form itself is preserved through these tension-managing institutions. Okay, Section 3, uncovering structural principles. You know, Radcliffe-Brown wasn't just some armchair theorist. To prove this wasn't all just abstract philosophy, he relied heavily on a highly rigorous approach known as the comparative method. Because, obviously, actual structures differ wildly from society to society. So he compared structures across many different groups to uncover general structural principles. He did fieldwork with the Andaman Islanders back in 1922, and he did this really deep analysis of Australian Aboriginal tribes, looking at myth, ritual, and totemism.
By comparing all these diverse groups, he uncovered underlying rules, things like descent and complementary filiation. And he found that these rules consistently generate predictable relationship patterns, pretty much no matter where you go.
Section 4. Managing in-law tension. This is fun. Let's look at how his ideas apply to a universally relatable challenge. This is where Radcliffe-Brown's theories become incredibly visible to us today.
So during his research, he noticed two distinct recurring kinship rituals that societies use to maintain social cohesion. First up is the joking relationship. This involves permitted teasing to ease potential tension. Think of, the casual roasting between brothers-in-law. But then on the flip side, you have the avoidance relationship. This one prescribes formal social distance, famously observed, of course, between a man and his mother-in-law.
Now here is the really fascinating takeaway. Whether you're playfully teasing a brother-in-law or formally avoiding a mother-in-law, these are not just random cultural quirks. Not at all. According to Radcliffe-Brown, they are vital structural mechanisms. They are quite literally designed to manage potential tension between conflicting statuses and reinforce the family unit. So basically, they prevent a complete social collapse at your Thanksgiving dinner.
Which brings us to Section 5, Strengths and Blind Spots. While Radcliffe-Brown undoubtedly brought incredible scientific rigor to social anthropology, any good explainer has to examine the limitations of a theory too.
And the critical appreciation of his work does point out several blind spots. Critics note that his whole biological analogy, it's largely static, because it assumes this constant equilibrium and it stresses continuity above everything else. It drastically underplays things like conflict, power struggles, and historical change. Because of that, his model is generally considered way better suited for analyzing small-scale, relatively stable societies, rather than the super-complex, fast-changing modern societies we live in right now.
In fact, because of these static blind spots, later scholars like Robert Merton had to step in and refine this functional approach. Merton recognized that, hey, we really need to add concepts like dysfunction and unintended consequences into the mix. He acknowledged that sometimes customs and institutions actually cause friction or even break a society down, rather than purely maintaining its continuity.
Yet, even with those limitations in mind, his overall contribution remains profoundly influential. His extremely precise definition of social structure as a concrete network of relationships and his method of studying how institutions actually maintain continuity, those concepts continue to shape the very foundation of sociology today.
So I want to leave you with a thought to ponder. As you look at your own workplace, your friend group, or even your family's micro-society through Radcliffe-Brown's lens, just ask yourself, in today's chaotic, rapidly shifting world, are we still functioning as a stable biological organism, or has the blueprint of society changed into something else entirely?